What's going on, guys? My name is Joe Graves, and this is Mastering Business Growth. Running a business can either be amazing or an absolute nightmare. So on this show, I speak with people who are killing it in business, and I find out what it really takes to succeed. If you think you'd be a good guest, then drop me an email at joe@innersound.media. Enjoy the episode. Linda Plant, thank you very much for joining me on Mastering Business Growth. How are we doing?
We're doing very well, actually. Absolutely. Very well indeed. Just launched a new business, but I suppose we can get to that later. But I'm doing well. If you're alive and feeling good, you're doing good.
Brilliant. I love that. So the whole point of this show is that I'm trying to master business growth for very selfish reasons. I would like to learn how to make more money whilst doing what I enjoy, and also create a bit of a resource for anyone else, because it's a messy world out there. There's a lot of misinformation, and I figured the best way to actually learn how to get things done is to speak to people like yourself who have done incredibly well. So please, in your own words, can we start with who you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Linda Plant. I'm an entrepreneur, really, but I like to call myself, really, until I launched this brand new business, a trader. And by a trader, I mean I've bought and sold from a market stall to multi-million-pound houses, and it's always trading. It's always buying and it's always selling. And there's actually always a similar golden rules for whatever you're dealing in. So that's who I am, and that's what I do, or what I did until about 10 days ago. And I now have an online business, which is totally different to anything I've ever done. Luckily, I'm doing it with my son, who is techie, but life's a learning curve, and I've been learning every day of my life.
Amazing. Where did it all start then? So I've got the information before this call, before this chat off the internet. It might be wrong, it might be right. From what I understand, you started working with your parents on market stalls.
Started with my mother on a market stall. I had incredibly working class, very, very, I would say, non-rich parents, poor parents, really. My father was a tailor and my mother was a secretary 3 days a week. And we took a lodger in, a German refugee, to help make ends meet. So I had a happy home. I was very loved. I'm an only child, but certainly we didn't have any money. And that's the reason, really. My mother got an opportunity to get a market stall in Dewsbury, which is a little town near Leeds, a market town. People think it was Leeds, but it wasn't. It was Dewsbury. And she got an opportunity to sell ladies' stockings, because in those days there weren't even tights. I can never hide my age, because sadly it's all over the internet. But anyway, it was a long time ago. And I went to help my mother in school holidays on a Saturday, and I realized then that I loved business, even though it was a very tiny, nothing little business, but I realized this is what I love. And so actually I left school at 15, but by the time I left school, the market stall in Dewsbury, we had an opportunity to get a market stall in Sheffield. Now, Sheffield was a steel town and it was a wealthy town. And in those days, there weren't any Brent Crosses or Westfield or White Rose Centres, but Sheffield had one indoor market with 4 floors, open 6 days a week, selling everything. And it was the nearest thing that you could imagine to an indoor shopping centre. It was super busy, and we got a chance to get a stall in that market, which actually, as I've got older and as I've become more successful in various businesses, there's always a bit of pressure, but there was never as much pressure as when you have to borrow money off your grandfather or my mother's father, who was an Austrian immigrant. And the money we borrowed, there was a lot of pressure to get it right, to pay him back. But he loaned us the money because we couldn't just sell stockings. We had to sell handbags and jewelry. And my mother had to give up her job because it was on 6 days a week. And that's really where it all started.
It's funny that you talk about the pressure to pay back the money you'd borrowed. It's such a driving force I find with business. So like often when you find yourself doing well, people take the foot off the gas. But do you credit that, the extreme squeeze and pressure to pay back a relative to your success? Was that the starting point of building the personality that got you so far?
Well, I would say that my personality is I'm very driven and I'm very motivated. And of course, in the very early days, there was nothing really to lose, but there was a pressure to pay back my grandfather. But I never really thought of failure. I never thought we wouldn't be able to. And in the end, he gave up his job and worked for us. But I've always gone into things looking forward. That doesn't mean to say that I don't look at the downside. I do, because the upside takes care of itself. The downside doesn't. But I've always been very motivated, very driven. And, as I've got on in business, I think it morphs into not so much, obviously paying back, but you have to forge relationships. Relationships are very, very important. And I've had relationships with banks and I've had relationships with all my suppliers in my fashion days and as well as my customers, because when times are tough, those relationships very often come into play and have very much come into play for me over the years. Plus the fact that I think, the strongest thing is to build relationships with all different kinds of people, because to be an entrepreneur or to be in business, you need all different kinds of ingredients to bake the cake.
Do you know what? It's funny you say that. The more people I speak to since I started this podcast, I've spoken to a lot of people that have done very well, a good few millionaires, and each one of them credits the quality of their relationships to their success. It's very interesting to hear you repeat that now in a world where people are trying to preach gimmicks, funnels, hacks, all that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I live in a world that, I'm a straight talking person, and I think the woke, maybe I'll get slaughtered for it. There's never been so few who have told so many what to do. There is no place for it. And you look at the success of Donald Trump, who has just won the American election landslide, and he's won it because whatever people try to inflict on other people, the people spoke. He gave the people what they wanted to hear. Maybe I'm digressing, but I looked on the stage with Oprah and J-Lo and all these celebrities, and yeah, they're endorsing this woman and it's fine. But they go home to their $20 million, $30 million mansions. But the people, the cost of living has gone up so much. To put gas in the car has gone up. To keep the borders safe. Those are the things, those are the important things. So I have never lost sight, I think, in my life, A, of the important things, and B, common sense, because common sense would tell you that the majority of people aren't really interested in a man taking part in a woman's swimming competition or, those kinds. They're interested in good basics, living in a safe community, having money in their pockets to do the shopping and all of those things. So, and even common sense has taken me far in my interviews in The Apprentice, where sometimes a lot of the business plans, they just lack common sense. So I am a straight talking, straight shooting woman. And yes, I've done well and I've made money. But I still feel I've got the measure, or like to think I've got the measure of the people.
I heard recently that people vote with their own wallets, so people actually, they don't say it, but they are actually quite selfish when they vote and talk about their politics and whatnot. So people will go, oh yeah, vote for in our instance, Labour, because it's for the people, supposedly. But then you go on LinkedIn, and where it's all business owners, and everyone's like, oh my God, this is so silly. Like companies are going to consume the costs, or, all these extra NI rises and whatnot.
I think that if you're really thinking about the people, you don't necessarily put up national insurance, because that's going to affect the people. You have to, thinking about the people, but then you have to really think about them and think, what makes the country good. You have to bring investment into the country to help the people. You have to look at all things. And so, I'm quite disappointed so far.
Yeah, as a business owner, most people are.
And I, honest to God, I am a person that can stand up and say, never mind the bullshit of the celebrities and all this, that, and the other. Let's really think. But I think having started my life off, in just a normal working class home, maybe less than that, I understand about things and I'm not dazzled by bright lights. I understand. Get your basics first. That's, and it was just really quite amazing when you really watched the America and the American people, So, yeah, you've got to. And I think in business, I've always been commercial. That's always been my ethos, really, to be commercial and to think commercially. And even when negotiating, you can't take every last penny. It's not right. You always want to negotiate where maybe you're a bit unhappy and the other person's a bit unhappy, but you can always come back to the table. Just forms. It's negotiation form is really based on also relationships in a way, but you need to know how to negotiate. And I did learn that at a very young age because I was one of the first women to it's one of the first women to be at the forefront of business and then to actually navigate the Far East and places like Seoul, Korea, where there was no place for women. So it taught me very quickly how to negotiate and how to negotiate with men that didn't really want to look at women.
Tell me about that. Tell me about negotiating, because I read a book a while ago called Never Split the Difference. And it's all about negotiating. Everything in life is a negotiation. What are your thoughts on it? Just tell me some things that the average person wouldn't know, the average business owner wouldn't think about negotiating.
Well, actually, I do believe in sometimes splitting the difference. I believe when I negotiate, the first thing I always try to do is actually get to know the person a little bit. And if you don't know them, find out a bit about them before you sit round the table with them. And if they're sort of a reasonable person, I like to break the ice a little bit with a not straight in, right, this is what I want, this is my way. It's never my way or the highway. Because if you say this is my best and final, you look an idiot if it's not. So I always try to start quite carefully, and I always try to start a little bit softly, but getting to the point. And as I said, I'm a big believer. If you can get 90% of what you want or 85% of what you want, you go away 15% unhappier. They might go away a bit unhappy, but I like to always leave the door open to come back to the table. And I'm always a big believer when I negotiated in my fashion business with factories for huge volumes, I always really knew roughly how much it cost the factory to make the goods. So I always knew how far I could go. You never negotiate to someone where you take everything they've got and, I've done a fabulous deal. Yeah, but you're never going to go back again. So, I always believe if you can get 90% of what you want, or 80% of what you want. Relationships, same in friendships, sometimes same in marriages, in partners. You never get 100%, but if you get a good percentage, you should be happy. And that's how I look at negotiation. And split the difference, it just depends what that deal is. It just depends what that deal is. But yeah, I would split the difference if that meant me getting the deal or walking away and not getting it, if I knew it worked for me.
So, do you know, I'm wondering, so why business? You say you grew up in a poor environment, and a lot of people, when they start dipping their toes into business, they quickly learn, oh, wow, this is a lot harder. There's so many things that you cannot predict. And even if you totally tighten up your systems, your processes, there's going to be daily challenges, things that you cannot possibly predict. So what made you think, well, this is the key to start accumulating more money, live a better life, as I've heard it referred to recently, comfort tokens.
Fun coupons.
As
Jordan Belford said. Here's the thing. Look, business is challenging. Very few people just walk into a business. I was listening to Elon Musk this morning. Just walk in and it's immediate success. It's not. And there are challenging times, but you have to persevere. You have to pick yourself up, dust yourself down. If you think you're going to start a business and there's going to be no challenges, don't bother starting it. I think it's important to know that you can ask for help. and everybody should ask for help. I'm asking for a lot of help now because I have never done an online business. So I am asking for help all the time. And I always say to people, ask for help. And of course, you're going to face challenges because that's business. It doesn't always run smooth. But you know what? Problems need solutions. And the answer is you got to try and find the solutions, not give up. Oh, I can't do this. It's too hard. And sometimes you might have to give up. You might have to, but you got to try your best. And not everyone's an entrepreneur, but everybody can have a go. And I don't say I've been lucky. I say I have seized opportunities. I have walked through every door, and some doors, there's not a lot on the other side, and some doors there is. But if you don't try, if you don't walk through the door, you're never going to know. So I'm a person that likes to go for things, and it's easy to go for things when you've got nothing because you haven't really got a lot to lose. And my life, I've done so many different things. And obviously the biggest change in my life came on going on The Apprentice. But so my life has been always just moving forward in different things and tackling different things. But a lot of it has been trading. You know, I've done fashions, I've done electronics, I've done property, which I still do now. It's all trading. Whether you're selling a jumper for 50 quid or in those days, I don't know, to 20 pounds or whatever, or you're selling a house for 20 million, the basics of that business are the same. You know, what does it cost to buy? What can you sell it for? And what can you sell it for is understanding your market. So, you know, when I started in my fashion business, and I go on a lot on The Apprentice about USP, because it's quite important if you think you can just offer something a bit different, if you can just have a unique selling point. So when I started, I wanted to bring very pretty, fancy knitwear at a mass market price. I never started with the idea of building a brand. I fell into that because I'm entrepreneurial, and because when I went to Hong Kong and did a range, because at the time I had 14 shops and a wholesale, and I did a range for my own business. And when I looked at it at the end of the 2 weeks, I thought, I think it needs a name. It wasn't, I'm going to go out to Hong Kong, I'm going to build a brand, I'm going to do this. And I always say where you start is never where you finish. And they'll be interested in this business to see how that goes. So I've always grasped opportunities as I've gone on, and I've always looked at things and thought, well, you know, maybe this should have a brand. And when I went into property business, I never ever thought about building an interior design business, but I did. I ended up with 12 staff and going all over the world. Never dreamt it would happen, but it happened because I furnish all the properties I did, and people like the furniture. So agents would say to me, well, can you do this furniture? Do you do an interior? And I had a team. And then that's how I started my interior design business, never going out to start one. So, yeah. And then a lot changed when I went on The Apprentice.
Do you know, I want to touch on something you just said there a minute ago. You know, how you basically built a company and decided later, right, I need to package this as a brand. And going back to, like, I've been binge watching your clips on The Apprentice where you're destroying people. And it's really interesting to look at it because I myself, my own company, we started it more it was a hobby that turned into doing it for some friends. You know, it's again, recording studio. It was music before, turned into podcasting, that kind of thing. And it was more of an idea that we tightened up that we then were forced to kind of package, let's say. And it's interesting. You watch some people that you are with on The Apprentice, and it's like, I don't know them, but it seems like it might be more that they want to be entrepreneurs for the sake of it, more as like that's who I am, as opposed to they have ideas that they want to create and push out into the world. Do you think that's the wrong approach, to think I want to be an entrepreneur for the sake of it and I'll think of something to sell after?
Well, no, I think if it's in your blood, it's in your blood. It's not, I think I'll be an entrepreneur. What can I do now? I think if it's in your blood that you want to actually be entrepreneurial, that's right in your blood. And then you get ideas and you think, well, how can I make this work? I think you've got to start with your ideas and also what you love. So I don't think you can wake up and say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I think it's sort of in you, if you really want. You go from strength to strength, and then you do things like I said, when I started with my property business, I didn't go into being an interior designer. But when some agents approached me and said, you know what, people would like this, I thought, well, why don't I start an interior design business? I thought on that scale. So I'm always thinking on the scale of business and what I can do and what people want. And I think that's within you. I think it's hard to wake up and say, I think I'll be an entrepreneur. Oh, what shall I do now? You get ideas and how can I make this idea work? And that's sort of what I think it is, really.
I got you. So obviously you've worked on a range of things, starting from market stalls to honeysuckle to your property stuff. In my head, there's two parts to any business: business development and doing the work. So I'm curious, how do you think about business development or getting work as a general? So let's say more sales on a market stall compared to property. How do you think about business development as a concept?
Well, I think that when you start in business, you are thinking about how that is going to develop. You should be thinking ahead. In the very early days, I wasn't thinking ahead because I was a kid, but really and truthfully, for instance, I didn't go out consciously to think about my property business, that I can start an interior design business. But I think that when you start a business, you should, and especially today, because I can't put myself, an uneducated little girl who started business, into the minds of a lot of people today who start business, who first of all are more educated than me, reasonably educated, I don't know. And the world's a very different place. There was no internet. But I think whatever business you start, you have to think, well, where could it go? And that's not where it's going to go day one. Because I say to people, and I say to them on The Apprentice, have a vision, but please walk before you run. I get so many business plans. Okay, well, they might have a business. It might be making 20,000. It's not going to make 2 million next year because it's not realistic, really. Nothing wrong in having aspirations, nothing wrong in developing, in having an idea, thinking, how can I develop that idea? And I spoke a lot in the pandemic because I just said, people have got to have, transferable skills. And there's a lot of people who are older in the pandemic who are going to lose their jobs and what we're going to do now. And I said, well, even for older people have got experience. And for younger people, I went on a program. There was a guy who was a photographer. Well, try and make jigsaw puzzles out of your beautiful photographs, or, try, if it's something you love, just try to think, how can I develop a business out of a passion? Because if you've got a passion, you're a long way down helping to make that business good. Because I am a passionate person. I am not a halfway person. I'm passionate about pretty much everything I do.
So going on The Apprentice, what was that like on a personal level? Did you think, this is going to change my life here? I'm going to become a public figure?
No, but it did. What happened was, I met Alan Sugar in the 80s when he had Amstrad, 70s, 80s, and I had Honeysuckle. I met him then. And I knew him, not socially, but I saw him a lot in Korea and Hong Kong. I knew his family. And I have a home in America, and so does he. And he's quite friendly with my son. So I have dinner with him, and I just knew him. And one day he called me up. I think it's 10 years ago. And he said, okay, Linda, I need a new interviewer for the final 5. I need someone who's going to dig deep and expose weaknesses. And I want good television. Can you do it? Well, I always say yes, so I have to say no, don't I? I'd never done television in my life. I'd never done any speaking in my life. I'd never done anything. So I just said, well, I'll have a go. And he said, right, I'll set you up with Fremantle. They're the people that do it. You give you a mock business plan and a mock candidate, and you'll have an audition. And I got this business plan, and I'd never critiqued a business plan before, but I just sort of went in there for the audition. And funnily enough, I lost my nerves because once I got into the other character, I kind of carried on. And 3 weeks later, Alan called me up. He said, okay, I want you to do it. He said, do not let me down. So no pressure there. And I did my first Apprentice. I think it is on YouTube. And of course, the very next day, I had a page in the Telegraph which said, who is Linda Plant? the new Queen of Mean interviewer on The Apprentice. So I phoned Alan up. I said, well, I've delivered the brief now. And that's really, that changed my life. It changed my life because nobody knew that I was a girl who went from a market stall to the stock market. And I never knew myself that I could have a voice and my journey would be inspirational to people. And it really has been. It really is. And I gave a talk at the Business Women's Tech in Business show the other week. And I stood on the stage. And if I tell you, you couldn't get a seat, you couldn't even get standing room. And I did a Q&A after, and one of the women asked me, what has been one of your proudest moments in your life, Linda? And I said, just without really thinking, apart from my children, I said, I have to say, standing on this stage and seeing this crowd of people that have come to hear me. And some of the women had come to me and said, we've flown from Ireland, from here to see you. That really, I could say, has been my proudest moment. And just finding out that I have a voice and I can give back and I can inspire people of all ages, still inspire them at my old age. And that's really, I would say, what The Apprentice did for me. Changed my life. We wouldn't be having this podcast if I hadn't gone on The Apprentice.
Correct. No, that is very true. And you know, it's interesting you say that because obviously you rose up to have incredible visibility all of a sudden. And you said earlier that you highly value great relationships in business. You effectively had access to the entire world once you'd grown your name on TV. So did you find yourself in a position where it was like, okay, I have access to everyone? That's good people and bad people. Did you have to develop a tighter screening process as to who you let in?
Well, what happens is you can't control journalists. And because once you decide that once people want to hear you speak or want to give you interviews, I know sometimes after the show, people really think that persona is fully me. Of course it's not. Reality TV is TV first. I am firm but fair, but trust me, at the end of the shows, at the wrap pods, I always have a good relationship, even with the ones that I've sort of taken to the cleaners a bit. So I think that, you know, having that voice is really good. And I found, you know, that there is some negative press, and I can't, as I said to you, I read things in the paper sometimes, and I will phone up the journalist and say, well, it's not true. Oh, well, we saw it on the Mail. We saw it on this, you know, and what can you do? I try to keep my private life, my family, and my private life private. My business life, I'm open to talk about. I don't talk about my children and I don't talk about my private life much because it's my private life, you know. I'll share my views with anybody and everybody. And sometimes you get a bit of negative press, but what can you do? You have to, you know, the press can be brutal, absolutely brutal.
Did you consider that when you put on this persona, like you say, you acted up and you made it a bit more extreme because, you know, make good TV. Did you consider that you might get some kickback from press?
No, until I did the first show and my son said, what a bitch, what a this. But I do get marriage. But conversely, I get marriage proposals from young guys. So I would say that the good has far outweighed the negative. The positive has far outweighed the negative. And I think, you know, I go on Your Fire with Tom Allen, and I think most people know, you know, I like to say I'm firm but fair. But if you give me a business plan that's wreckable, I'm going to wreck it, because there is also £250,000 investment involved. So, you know, you do have to critique it.
So, you know, you mentioned a minute ago about giving back. How important is that to you? Obviously, you started the Plant Academy. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, it is. And so I never knew that I could talk publicly. And after the first Apprentice, I had a call from HSBC, who sponsor a thing called Forward Ladies. And they said, will I give a talk to 250 people? And I went, Are you joking? I've never spoken to anyone. I can't stand up in front of 250 people. And I didn't give the talk. And then another month later, I got a talk. My eldest son is a barrister, and I got a talk from a firm of barristers who've got barristers all over the country, but they wanted me to come to Leeds and give a talk. And I thought, well, maybe I better start. Maybe I better have a go at giving this talk. So I got on the train and I went to Leeds. I'm making all these notes, and I get to the room, and there's about 100 people in the room. And I stood up and I said, actually, I came up on the train this morning. I made a lot of notes, but actually I've torn every one of these notes up because I feel it's much better. I never write speeches or notes. I feel it's much better for me to tell you my journey from my heart, and you can ask me any questions you want. And that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did. And of course, 6 months later, I did give the talk for HSBC. They did put it on YouTube. And now I'm much more polished on the talks, but I realized I can give a talk, but I just talk to people, and I say, I think, what they want to hear, Yes, you can. If you're not educated, I was invited to Cambridge to speak at Cambridge, Alan Sugar went to Oxford to speak. He also started from the back of a van selling aerials. There's different forms of education. I'm educated in street life, in common sense, in those kind of things. And so I just give everybody the message. You can have a go. You can have a try. You don't have to have qualifications. Of course, it's better. I'm not saying you shouldn't. And when I floated my company, I had a lot of the city people, and they say, well, Linda, you didn't go to university. And, how do what do you accredit your success for? And I go, well, I stood on a market stall. There's no better learning how to trade than that. And I think that's it. And I think having the measure of people, because you have to understand your market. When you're selling sweaters, I want to understand, who is my market? What will they like? And what am I giving them what they want? When I'm selling even a multi-million-pound property, I always evaluate, who's my market? What they're going to want in this house? What's the comps? What can I get for it? Actually, it's common sense. It's common sense. So giving talks now, I spend quite a lot of time in America, but I'm now giving more and more talks. I'm finding I'm more and more inspirational. And so that's a side of me a side of my life now that I'm loving, because when I can stand up and inspire people. And as I said to you, Adrian, I've got the measure of people, I believe. And I was proved right with the American election, because, everyone thought, oh, Kamala Harris is going to get it. It's 50. It's close. And I said right away, it's not going to be close. It's not going to be close because people are sick of having in America, because I live there. I know people are sick of having 6 million illegals with an open border. When I go shopping to a supermarket now, it is 3 times the price it was. It is so expensive. A jar of jam, $7. I can buy my marmalade in Tesco at £1.80. Yes. And gas. And so I understood that nobody's interested in seeing Oprah Winfrey and J-Lo in multi-million-pound properties dancing around. And Kamala Harris never really gave one solid thing of what she's going to do for the people. And I think it's the same here. People put Labour in, they were hoping to get people, to get the country going again, get the country moving again. And there is an element of business. You have to please business people. You have to bring investment, because that's how you get money into the country to help the poor. No economy has ever been good or been helped by raising taxes. That's just a bit
Agreed.
a bit of my political coming out, because all my friends go, Linda, you should be Lady Mayoress. You should be in politics. I don't want to be in politics, but I know what the people want. I could many a time stand up and say, you've got it all wrong because you're not speaking to the people.
As a business owner, you have to be so focused on what the people want. So yeah, in that respect, a lot of people in business do transfer to politics very well.
That's why a business person would, if they wanted to, make a good politician. Because if you understand business, you understand what you need to give to the people, how you need to make your business tick, So there is something in a business person who can be quite good in politics.
So thinking about business in general, there's three primary motivators as far as I see it, which is like social impact, financial gain, or fun coupons, as you say. And what was the third one? Just loving the game. Do you agree that those three play roles in your experience, and how do they evolve over time?
I agree. Look, I agree. First of all, you got to love the business. When I started my business, of course, I had no money, but it wasn't really the money that motivated me. It was the love of the business. Of course, the money was nice, but the motivation has always been the love of the business. And so the money is lovely. It's nice. And if you're good at the business, you get the money. Now I feel social impact is important, which in a way is why going on The Apprentice gave me a voice. And even with the latest business I've started, there is a big element that I want to bring to it if it's successful of social impact. So I think and I'm about to be chairwoman of another company, which is not something that I know nothing about, but which has also got a lot of social impact. So I think social impact is very important, has become much more important as the days we live in now, where we've got the internet and everything else, where social media is so important. But loving the business, if you love the business, if you're passionate about it, and money isn't necessarily your goal, but you like it, you'll make the money. And then, how you use the money is good as well. I always say to working mothers, myself being a working mother, and I say, love is about quality, not necessarily quantity. And sometimes you're working, but you are laying the foundations for your children's future. Think of it that way, because I get it a lot, not as much. Yeah, I do still get it about mothers who work and the feelings of guilt and things like that, and I go, no, I worked from day one, and I have 3 sons who I would say are quite proud of their mother. They might think she's a bit crazy. What you're doing now, Mum? But I would say on the whole, they're quite proud of me.
I love that. So it's quite interesting when you think, well, society in general characterizes business owners as these like villains sat on the beach with a big stack of cash, just like, haha, I've got all the money. But from my experience, meeting people that have done well in business, they were forced to develop extremely good characteristics and improve themselves in every aspect and think about others. What are your thoughts on that and how people think about business owners and entrepreneurs?
I don't know if people think about everybody sitting on a beach I do like sitting on a beach, but I think that you've got to see the people that you work with. And during my honeysuckle days, I had 100 people working for me. I had an office in Hong Kong. They've got to respect you. Now, respect is a very important thing in life, in all relationships. But you see, respect has to be earned. You have to earn people's respect. So I think the people that will say, oh, look at them, it's all right for you because you've got this and you've got that. I don't take much to those people, because I've also been at the other end of it, and I use my presence now to inspire people for the good of people. I have never looked at anyone, even when I had nothing, with jealousy. I have looked at those people as, I'd like to do that. I'd like to get there. I'm not jealous. I want to aspire to be you. And I like to talk to people who say to me, Linda, we'd like to aspire to be successful, to do those things. I do not. I believe there's no place for jealousy. There's no place that it's all right for you. Everybody can get an opportunity. Not everybody's going to become super rich. Not everybody's going to become a millionaire, but not everybody needs to. You need to find a level of happiness and satisfaction in your life. That's very important at every level. But I am never one that sat back and went, oh, look at them. I might have sat back and said, I'd like to do that one day. I'd like to be able to go there one day. But never thinking, all right for you, you just had it handed on a silver plate. And I'm the person that never had anything handed on a silver plate. I was poorer than probably anyone I ever knew, you know, but I was happy, and that's how it was. And now I'm not so poor, and being not so poor is better than being poor. But I now use my voice to want to help people.
Do you know what, Linda? I do want to bring this to a close soon, but honestly, what an amazing journey you've had. You've done so much in so many different areas, so many different industries. What are you planning for the future? What else is still on your bucket list?
Well, I've started a new business, which again is, I've started with my son. It's a very, very different business for me, but it's an online business, and it's called Compare Dental Turkey. So there are a lot of people that go to Turkey to have dental procedures. In fact, there are about 200,000 people a year. And my son has a friend who's been in the business for about 6 years, and we decided to launch a website where people who want to have dental procedures, at the moment cosmetic, but I'll get onto the social impact in a minute and what I think about it, who want to go to Turkey, and they have to navigate language problems, trolling through the internet. I've opened an office in Antalya in Turkey, with a team there. I've signed up 250 clinics in 6 different cities. And if people are wanting to have cosmetic dentistry at the moment, then if they come onto our site, they can very easily upload their images. They will pick what city they want to go to, when they want to go. They will get 10 quotes back from clinics. And then I have employed a team of UK dentists, our dental support people, who will speak to these people completely independent of any Turkish clinic, and will explain to them what that procedure is, what that means, how it will be. That's completely free of charge. I've also giving everyone a free insurance policy, a travel policy, because most people, when you go to Turkey to cosmetic dentistry, they quote the price and they quote accommodation. Some of the clinics are so amazing, they have hotels attached, some don't. But what you don't get is a policy from the minute you step on the plane that covers your flights, covers your hotel if there's delays, etc., covers you for 12 months if you have to go back to Turkey and have an extra procedure. So I'm giving that free. And the beauty about it is you don't pay any more. The booking fee is paid with a UK credit card. The booking fee comes off your price. And my hope is that if it's successful, which I think it will be, I want to bring, and I'm hoping in this place, my profile might help me do a deal with the government. I would like to bring normal NHS dentistry to Turkey, because there are some the clinics are state of the art. And if you need a national health dentist, now I'm not talking about for a filling, but I'm talking about root canal, crowns, proper dentistry. If you need a national health dentist in England, well, you are in a very difficult position. You can't get one. And private dentistry is not really affordable. It's not. You know, even if you want to have cosmetic dentistry, because I think there'll be 2 markets. The middle-aged people, they might never have been to a dentist. They might have cosmetic dentistry, and other than just having cleaning, they'll never need to have a dentist again. So there's much more of an impact behind what I'm doing than just go to Turkey and get a set of big white shiny teeth. Much more behind that. So we'll see. But as I've said, it's very new. It's very different. I'm learning every day the challenges. I'm facing them every day. But I've only been launched a week, so we'll see.
That's a fantastic idea. And what's it like working with your son?
Yeah, I love working with my son. That is great.
Yeah, so I work with my brother, and it's a big part of what keeps it fun for me. I've spoken to a few people who work with family members. Some people love it, some people hate it.
It's quite nice for me because I'll tell you why. My son is very savvy with tech. I'm very not. But I feel I'm the market. So I go to him, no, I don't understand it. If I don't understand it, people won't understand it. So I'm the market. I need it simple. So I tell him what to do. You know, not everybody can do it like you. Think about me. If I can work it, anyone can work it. So I'm the benchmark for, right, if I can do it, others can do it. So it's quite interesting from that point of view as well, going into a kind of online business. So we'll see.
That's a really good system to use. We have a similar thing here, again, with me and my brother, where you separate roles and whatnot. And over the years, I took more charge of how we're going to run the business, and he just didn't learn certain things. So he's got that almost layman mindset with a lot of things, and he's a good measure to be like, right, does this make sense to you? And often it's the best feedback before you even take something to market. And you can be like, that's way too complicated. That's too many words, things like that.
Well, that's what's good, isn't it? You know, that's what's good. You need a mix of people. And sometimes some people are good at some things and some people are good at others. Know what you're good at, play to your strengths. And if you've got weaknesses, find someone who's got strength in those weaknesses. Agreed.
Well, I'll tell you what, Linda, I've really enjoyed this chat. We'll call it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you very much. I hope the podcast is very successful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, great. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for watching this episode. Again, if you think you'd be a good guest on the show, then please drop me an email at joe@innersound.media. See you in the next episode.